My son hadn't answered the phone for 2 weeks, so I drove to his house myself. When I got there, I felt a chill. Something moved under my grandson's bed. I called the police, and the moment they lifted that frame, my world turned upside down. That was only the beginning of a storm no mother should face. Before I share the story, I'd love to know, how are you doing today? For 14 days, I dialed my son's number and waited. Each time, the ringtone stretched on, then dropped into his voicemail. At first, it was his cheerful message, "Hey, this is Obi. Leave a note, I'll get back to you." By the end of the second week, even that message sounded flat to me, like a recording that no longer belonged to him. I checked my own settings, convinced maybe my ringer was wrong. I tried in the early morning, when folks are usually home, and late at night, when working men settle down. Still nothing. The strangest part was that the app showed active recently. If he was active, why couldn't he answer his mama's call? I left a voice memo one evening, my voice sharper than I meant, "Baby, call me. Don't make me come up there." When I asked a neighbor if they'd seen much traffic around his house, they shrugged. "Been quiet over there." Silence can be worse than noise. Silence tells you something is already broken. I thought to myself, routine is a lullaby that can hide a storm. I decided not to blast it on Facebook, not to text cousins who'd only panic. Instead, I booked a bus ticket to Indianapolis for the next morning. I packed light wallet, phone, scarf, on the ride. I scrolled back to our last normal call, his tired laugh, telling me Asahel's school project about bridges had him covered in glue. I had started writing a text that said, "Where the hell are you?" but deleted it. I typed instead, "I'm on my way, baby." I never pressed send. To keep my nerves from unraveling, I used the breathing routine the church ladies taught me. Inhale for 4, hold for 7, exhale for 8. Courage comes in measured breaths when fear tries to take over. By the time I reached his street, dusk had fallen. Marion County looked washed out by drizzle. The porch lights flickered through the mist. I walked up the steps. The swing squeaked in the wind. I tested the doorknob before knocking. It turned. Obadiah never left it unlocked. A faint draft carried the smell of stale coffee. I whispered a prayer, "Lord, guide my steps, steady my eyes." My voice followed Obi Asahel. The blinds inside hung crooked. I held my phone ready, thumb hovering over 911. I didn't charge in. I listened. Knocking loud is easy. Listening hard is wiser. The dining room stopped me cold. Plates still set. A small bowl with dried cereal clumped around the spoon, an apple browning on the counter. A coffee mug shattered. Its stain darkened into the wood. A chair shoved back as if someone jumped up quick. A tiny sock under the rung told me Asahel had been there. On the fridge was a sticky note, "Library tomorrow, 4 p.m. in Obadiah's neat block letters. That smiley face cut me sharper than glass. I snapped a photo, hands shaking, but I didn't move anything. Nothing breaks a mother faster than a meal that never got finished. I checked the Wi-Fi, it still broadcasted his name. My phone joined like I belonged there. I pinged his device, last seen 3 days ago, less than a mile away. Recent texts showed Asahel's silly gif of a dancing cat, and in Obadiah's sent folder, a draft email about insurance paperwork. I pressed call once more. His voice answered through voicemail. Steady, recent, familiar. The house hummed, the sink dripped, the fridge cycled. The truth doesn't shout, it repeats until you can't ignore it. Then I heard it a scuff, faint down the hall. I stepped forward. At Asahel's door, a draft brushed my legs. The nightlight glowed blue. "Baby," I whispered. No answer, just a sound of plastic scraping the floor beneath the bed. My breath caught, my hand tightening around the phone. Courage ain't the lack of fear. It's what you carry into the room anyway. I stood in Asahel's doorway, my thumb hovering over the screen with 911 ready, breath drawn in careful counts. The nightlight painted the walls with a soft blue glow, and that thin bed skirt fluttered just enough to tell me this wasn't the wind. I stayed still, forcing my outline to remain calm, because sudden moves scare children or whoever else might be hiding. My eyes swept the room the way I'd been taught to sweep a church kitchen after service, taking every detail. The crooked blinds, the draft at my legs, the exit path back to the porch if I had to run. I leaned my voice low and steady. Asahel. Baby, if that's you, don't move. Grandma's here. I wasn't about to grab that mattress or call too loud. A steady hand beats a loud heart when a child is scared. I pressed the call button. The dispatcher's voice clicked in quick. Crisp 911, what is your emergency? I whispered my son's address and gave her the details. Possible child under the bed, house disturbed, door unlocked. She told me to stay back 2 paces, eyes on the bed, announce that help was coming. Say police are on the way. Ma'am, and do not touch anything. I followed every word, my voice just above a breath. Police are on the way. Sugar, just stay put. I shared my location with the dispatcher's link, and with one neighbor I trusted who lived 2 doors down. I pulled the front door open so the officers wouldn't waste time. My mind ticked off steps like a grocery list, rugs out of the way. Porch lights steady, no heroics. Panic wastes minutes. Preparation buys them back. Kneeling near the footboard, I let my knees settle onto my scarf so no joints cracked loud. One breath at a time. Sugar, you're not alone. The sound answered back a faint scrape, the roll of a water bottle against wood. Stopping with a soft clink, I stretched 2 fingers near the dust ruffle, not reaching, just showing presence. If you hear me, tap once. The tap came, to soft but sure. My chest felt like it might split, but I kept steady. I told the dispatcher child responsive by sound. Request EMS with patrol. She logged it. Sometimes loving a child means learning to wait inside your worry. The officers arrived minutes later, quiet as shadows. I waved them low, whispering, bedroom left, possible child under bed. They cleared the hallway, the closet, the bathroom. One at the headboard, one at the foot. Kiddo. We're here to help, one officer said. On a count of 3, they lifted the bed frame. My breath froze. There was Asahel curled tight, clutching an empty bottle, his cheeks streaked with dried salt, eyes dull but open. A library card peeked from his pocket. Nothing humbles a room like a child who's been brave too long. They told me not to touch, but I asked permission to lay my scarf across his shoulders. I spoke softly about his school project, about the note on the fridge with the smiley face. His eyes shifted toward my voice. The officers called for EMS, logging every detail. I took one picture of the bottle and card, locking it away. Not for sharing. Mercy is measured by what you don't do as much as what you do. When the paramedics arrived, I stepped back. They asked me for the timeline. 2 weeks of silence. Dinner half-eaten. Door unlocked. Child found responsive. The officer said, "You did right, ma'am." I shook my head. No, he did. He stayed. Asahel's lips cracked, and just before they lifted him to the gurney, his voice broke through. Grandma, I squeezed my own hands to keep from falling apart. Sometimes, survival is a child's first testimony. At Eskenazi Health, the hallway lights buzzed soft and steady, nothing like the storm I carried in my chest. I stood in the doorway while the pediatric team leaned over Asahel. Voices low and efficient, they asked for age, history. Any meds, my answers came quick. Clipped, like notes in a ledger, a paramedic repeated. Found under the bed, clutching an empty bottle. I corrected him gently. Steady as stone, he waited. The doctor checked his lips, pressed a nail for capillary refill, waved a light without blinding him. Orders flew IV fluids, labs, keep the room calm. Then the attending looked at me square. Voice waited, ma'am. If we were 1 day later, he didn't finish. I nodded once. Toes locked to the tile. I texted Detective Greaves stable but dehydrated. Bad news is a mirror. It shows you what kind of spine you carry. I asked the nurse if I could lay my scarf back on his shoulders. She nodded. So I did. Tucking it around him the way I once tucked quilts on my front porch swing. My words circled ordinary Anchor's library cards, apple slices, the bridge project he'd glued together with his daddy. No big stories, just soft reminders that the world still had small, safe corners. My phone buzzed, screen down. I refused to post, refused to make his pain a show. Instead, I jotted times in my notes app when he blinked, when his eyes tracked sound. A nurse thanked me for staying measured. Plenty of folks ask all the wrong questions. You're just present. Dignity is a blanket you hold over a child until they can hold it themselves. When he stirred, I leaned close. Yes or no, baby? His head tilted. Was someone at the door? A nod. A woman nod. A man. His eyes squeezed shut. Another nod. His whisper cracked. Daddy said, hide. Don't come out. Not till he calls. My heart clenched, but I repeated the words so the nurse could note them. He lifted 2 fingers, measuring something. Night nod, storm nod. Did you hear a thud? Tears welled, and a single nod followed. I didn't push names, didn't lead, just let him set the door to memory. I texted Greaves, child indicates 2 intruders. Father's directive. Heavy impact sound. No names. When a child lends you a memory, you carry it like glass. Later, I called Celine Mellis. My voice level but sharp. Celine. Asahel is alive. He's under care. From here on. Every contact goes through the detective. I paused, then added, do not step into that house. Do not contact the boy. This is not a negotiation. I followed with a text time-stamped. No insults, no room for argument. CC'd to Greaves. At the desk. I told the nurse only law or medical staff could approach us. Then I sat, breathing my practiced 4-7-8 calm, not by chance, but by discipline. A boundary is love in a straight line. When the room quieted, I spoke to him as if we were back home, waiting on pancakes. Monday comes no matter what Sunday does. I said, and you won't do this alone. It wasn't a grand vow, just the truth. My phone buzzed again. Greaves this time. We pulled a ring cam clip. You'll want to see it. I typed back. When she replied, 10 a.m., Marion County. We'll walk it together. I touched the scarf on his shoulders and whispered, we listen first, then we speak. Proof is what you bring when pain isn't enough. By 10 the next morning, I was sitting beside Detective Greaves in the precinct's AV room. The hum of the equipment matched the rhythm of my pulse. Steady but insistent. On the screen, the neighbor's ring clip flickered to life. A dark pickup idled at the curb, headlights off. Then a flash, quick and sharp, like someone signaled in code. 2 silhouettes crossed Obadiah's driveway, one broad, one narrow. The audio tech isolated a woman's voice. Sign it or he'll never see his kid again. The words landed like stones in my chest. Greaves marked the waveform, entered it into chain of custody, her pen scratching without pause. A second clip, from another doorbell farther up the street, caught the truck's taillights sliding south minutes later. Greaves sketched a map, marking approach, pause, and exit. I matched the timestamps with the storm line that had rolled through that night. Pictures tell stories. Timestamps make them true. By late morning, we stood in my son's house again, this time with the lights dimmed, a forensic tech sprayed, and the luminol glowed soft blue across the floor. What I first thought was spilled coffee bloomed into arcs that trailed past the mug stain. The glow bent toward the couch leg, then smeared like something dragged. Stopping short of the hall, another swab, another photo, rulers lined up. The shattered mug was bagged, the chair's scrape marks cast. I folded my hands, keeping them still at my waist, refusing to disturb a single inch. Greaves whispered, voice flat, "This is not random." I nodded. She didn't have to say more. A quiet room can still testify. Back at the precinct, the evidence began to stitch into a picture. Traffic camera stills caught the same pickup near I-465 Rain, streaking the lens. Plate, half obscured. Greaves pinned 4 possible warehouse clusters around the beltway. Patrol would sweep them, cameras pulled within hours. A tech printed a heat map of storm detours, 2 red corridors glowing like veins. On the board we wrote words: approach, entry, impact, exit, transport. Each one was a doorway waiting to be walked through. You don't chase shadows. You follow their shape to the source. Early afternoon, with a warrant in hand, the digital team powered up Obadiah's laptop. His inbox sat open. An unsent draft titled Beneficiary Change. Inside. His words were plain life insurance moved to a trust for Asahel. Effective immediately. Attached was a blank trustee form. The last edit date 2 days before the storm. The sentence cut off mid-thought, the cursor blinking after effective immediately. I read it once. Slow. The way a mother reads a note left on the fridge. Photos were taken, prints logged, nothing out of place in his tidy study. A man's plans speak loudest in what he didn't get to finish. In the conference alcove, Greaves mapped out our next step. We'll freeze the payout. Temporary restraining order. Civil attorney handles it. Insurer Special Investigations Unit notified. She rattled tasks like she was reading a grocery list. My part, dig up the policy file. Call his employer's HR. Track down prior beneficiary records. Her part affidavits tying the ring audio. The luminol. The timeline. Surprise would be our weapon, no warning to Celine. I agreed. Calm but firm. You don't shout at a storm. You board the windows and act. By late afternoon, we tied the loose ends. I forwarded a short update to the hospital custody concerns. Visitors limited. Greaves dispatched patrol to those warehouse sites. I asked the library to quietly hold a new card for Asahel under guardian status. A seed of hope. Then my phone buzzed a text from an unknown number. Any news on the policy? My thumb didn't move. I screenshotted and sent it to Greaves. She looked at me and said, "If she's going to move on the money, she'll try it today." I tightened my scarf, eyes on the map. Then today we move first. Right moves beat loud moves. The marble floor of the insurer's lobby echoed every heel strike, and Celine Maylis made sure hers carried. She stood at the counter, hair smooth, blouse crisp, sliding her driver's license and a neat folder across to the clerk. She even hummed like she was running errands, not trying to collect the reward of my son's absence. I walked in with Detective Greaves and the attorney's assistant. TRO papers already signed by the judge that morning. Timing is the lever that moves mountains. The clerk glanced from Celine's smiling face to the document in the assistant's hand. His pen froze midair. Then he slid Celine's form aside. This payout is under freeze order until further notice. The crack in her face came fast shock, then anger, then a laugh too sharp to be real. She turned toward me, her voice raised. "You can't do this to me, I'm his wife." I steadied my tone. "You can explain that to the judge." "Today, the money stays put," she sputtered, cheeks blotched, hands trembling over her handbag. Behind her, Royce Tiller leaned against the doorframe, phone in hand. His stare locked on me like a warning. Greaves caught it too and tipped her chin toward an officer outside, signaling for a quiet tale once he left. Celine's fury spilled into the room. "This isn't over, Marva. You'll regret humiliating me." I shook my head. "It's not about you. It's about a boy who deserves the truth more than your bills. When someone shows you their rage, they've already lost their calm." Just then, Greaves's phone buzzed. She read the message with a sharp inhale. Forensics flagged irregular activity at one warehouse in the Beltway cluster the same night Asahel was told to hide. The pickup was caught on camera near that site. Officers were already moving. Greaves asked, "You want to wait or ride with us?" My hands tightened on my scarf. I started this quiet. I'll see it through loud. The dread in my chest wasn't about victory. It was about what waited behind those corrugated walls. Celine tried to catch my arm, but Greaves stepped between us. "Ma'am, this conversation is over. Sometimes the only way forward is into the dark." By the time we reached the warehouse, the sun was dipping low, throwing the lot into long shadows. Yellow tape fluttered in the wind. The metal door hung open, pried loose. A detective waved me back, but my eyes had already caught it, the tarp stretched over a body on the concrete floor. The air inside was cold, carrying motor oil and damp cardboard. Pallets rose like walls, silent witnesses. The tarp lifted just enough to confirm what my heart already knew. Obadiah lay there, jacket zipped, storm mud still on his shoes, face pale but unmistakable. My knees didn't fold. I gripped the steel frame of the doorway and whispered, "I told you to call me back, baby." A mother knows the weight of silence before anyone else believes it. They asked me to confirm the ID. I did, voice steady though my chest ached. Before they zipped him again, I laid my scarf over his chest, a final act of warmth. "Rest now," I whispered. "Your boy is safe. Outside." Word came that Royce's truck was seen leaving the Beltway within the hour. The pattern was closing, threads tightening around him and Celine. I didn't cry in front of them. Instead, I signed the paperwork. Spine straight, steps measured. On the ride back, I texted Asahel's nurse. He'll need me strong tomorrow. Strength is sometimes signing your name when your hand wants to fall. At dawn, I sat behind the one-way glass. The room chilled though the sun was rising. Detective Greaves stood beside me as the driver was read his rights. He didn't resist, didn't fidget his voice, even when he said he'd been paid in cash by Royce Tiller for a short night run. He traced the route from Obadiah's street straight to the warehouse, every word sharpening the air. When asked if he'd heard anyone else, he repeated a sentence that struck like a knife. He'll be gone soon, just shut up and drive. It matched the ring clip exactly, down to the tone. He pointed at Celine's photo without hesitation, adding details only a witness could hold her perfume, a white umbrella glistening in the storm. He sketched the tarp's loading point and the place where the truck idled, times aligning within minutes of the storm's surge. Truth walks steadier when it carries details. Back in the evidence alcove, Greaves and the tech stitched his account against the digital net. Traffic cams picked up the dented tailgate, partial plate intact, the pickup sliding across intersections. A subpoena returned Celine's phone hitting towers first by the house, then by the warehouse, then going silent like a staged vanishing. A gas station receipt sealed it cash spent, but the camera caught Royce at the pump. Jacket hood low, dent clear, each piece bagged, each chain of custody tag affixed. I added my own notes time Asahel was found. A hospital intake, the scarf laid across his shoulders. It wasn't emotion I gave them. It was a timeline that breathed. A case is a quilt tight stitches. No loose corners. Late morning found us in the courthouse conference room. Binders stacked like bricks. The prosecutor walked me through the plan driver first, ring audio second, then luminol photos, route map and receipts. Stay neutral, he warned. They'll press for slip-ups, push grief or accident. Your role is foundation. We practiced my answers until they were stone times. Places, observations. Greaves leaned in close. We don't win loud. We win clear. I nodded, breathing slow, steady. Let your facts do the talking and your temper do the listening. By afternoon, the courtroom was a storm of its own. The driver spoke plain. Steady pickup point. The tarp, the umbrella, the woman's words. On cross. The defense smirked. You want a deal? Don't you? He answered. I want to sleep again. And never wavered from the times. The ring audio played. The gallery hushed as the sentence echoed. Forensics showed the glowing arcs, the drag that ended before the hall. Photos of the dented truck tailgate and the gas station still lined up with the storm. Clarity is louder than any voice that shakes. Then came the defense gambit, an accident, a quarrel gone wrong, panic. They tried to paint Celine as frightened, broke, cornered. But the prosecutor slid Obadiah's unsent draft across the bench, a trust for Asahel. Signed days before the storm. Motive sharpened like a blade. The insurer's rep confirmed she filed a claim within hours of his death. Objection rose, overruled. The truth held. People tell you who they are. Evidence tells you what they did. The judge's ruling was firm probable cause, remand for Royce, restricted contact for Celine, payout frozen. A deputy stepped forward, cuffs ready. Celine hissed. This is a circus. But she didn't meet my eyes. I kept my hands folded. No gloating, no words wasted. Justice is a door that opens inches at a time. The evidence tech brought it in sealed. Still damp from the dumpster, an off-brand burner phone. Pulled warm just 2 miles from the warehouse. I stood back in the doorway, scarf tight at my throat, while Detective Greaves called the on-call judge. Within minutes, we had a digital warrant in hand. Every barcode scan and intake photo logged. Moisture, grit, oil residue, all noted. The location matched the last known corridor of Royce's pickup. My role was simple observer. Mother, no contamination. The phone was walked straight into the lab for extraction. I texted Asahel's nurse. Might be late for check-in. My heart raced, but my hand stayed steady. When the river runs muddy, you follow the bubbles, not the bragging. The lab lit up with blue screens and keystrokes. The tech bypassed the partial lock, opening a sparse home screen in a tucked-away folder. The voice recorder sat waiting. One file was stamped minutes after the ring clip from Obadiah's street. Greaves and the analyst split headphones. I listened too. Celine's voice snapped through static. Sign? Now. I'm not waiting forever. A man's tone, muffled but clear enough to match Royce, replied, "We move him first, then you collect." Then came a sound that broke me, Obadiah's whisper. Panicked. "Don't you dare," followed by a heavy thud. Storm hiss, tarp scrape. Metadata confirmed the route house to Beltway exit. I counted my breaths, 4, 7, 8. When silence returned, I said, "Label it. Lock it. Let it speak where it counts. A lie can outrun a rumor. It cannot outrun a recording." Within hours, the prosecutor notified defense. Royce's lawyer sniffed around for a proffer deal, whispering that his client didn't want to take the whole fall. Celine's team spun the same tired line: domestic accident. Panic. Poor choices. The prosecutor held firm, no deals without Celine's full confession. Greaves stayed unreadable. Pen tapping, eyes still. I offered no opinions. Only the chain time, place, words on tape. That night. I still sent a message to the nurse reading to him at 8. "Please dim the lights." Justice and bedtime lived in the same sentence. If a deal needs the truth, it's mercy. If it dodges the truth, it's theater. 3 weeks later, the courthouse brimmed with tension. Foundation was laid, ring footage, luminol arcs, the driver's testimony, then the analyst brought the phone. The chain was clean warrant, custody, metadata intact. The jury leaned forward as Celine's command bled into the room. "Sign. Now. I'm not waiting forever." Royce's answer followed, then the muffled protest of my son. The gallery froze. You could hear clothes shifting in the benches. Defense objected. Overruled. The truth had entered. Truth doesn't clap, it lands. Closing arguments tied it all. Obadiah's unfinished beneficiary change, Celine's demand, Royce's transport, the concealment. The jury didn't take days. They came back the same evening. Guilty Celine for homicide and fraud, guilty Royce for conspiracy and transport. The payout froze permanent. Custody of Asahel secured. I didn't look at them. I watched the clerk's pen scratch the verdict. Greaves brushed 2 fingers on the table. Our silent nod. Justice is not joy. It's a straight back when you stand up. As they cuffed Royce and Celine wilted beside her lawyer, I stepped into the hall, called the librarian, and asked for a new card to be held for Asahel. Guardian pickup only. That night at the hospital. I read aloud until his eyes closed. I whispered, "You'll learn to trust rooms again. A good ending is a door with light under it." The corridor thinned after the verdict, footsteps fading until only the echo of the bailiff's boots remained. Celine stood between 2 deputies, her wrists unbound for now, but her face drained of that courtroom shine. No shouting, no crowd, just the raw air of consequence. I stepped close enough for her to hear, but not enough for her to feel bold. My voice stayed level, as steady as the marble under my feet. "You picked money over a boy. Now you have neither. Remember that when the night is loud?" Her eyes flinched. The mask cracked. I gave her the second sentence I'd kept in reserve. "You won't go near Asahel again, not by court, not by conscience." She sagged, shoulders folding inward, and I turned away first. Victory isn't noise. It's the right to walk away. 4 weeks later, we gathered for sentencing. The judge's tone was clipped, each word an iron rung. Royce Tiller was remanded. Celine Melis handed a permanent no-contact order with Asahel, the payout frozen. Fraud confirmed. I signed guardianship papers, medical, school, travel decisions, all clean strokes of my pen. The prosecutor thanked me for restraint. I answered, "Restraint is how we keep what the verdict gave." We left with case numbers and stamped copies, not trophies. Paperwork is how justice keeps its promises. We held Obadiah's memorial at the small church he once repaired the roof for. No fanfare, just a few colleagues, neighbors, and the librarian who remembered his Saturdays. My eulogy was plain, no gilded promises, only a man who loved bridges and his son. I spoke of the beneficiary change he tried to finish, the trust meant for Asahel. Then I announced the start of a community reading grant in his name, funded by donations and freed costs from the fraud case. Asahel placed a paper crane in a glass jar at the altar, his own ritual, his own goodbye. We walked out under a sunlight that didn't strain to console us. Grief is a house. You live in it better when you open the windows. At home. I changed the locks myself, slid the bed against a wall so nothing could hide behind it, replaced the nightlight with one that cast a gentler glow. The first therapy session came trauma-informed, paced by choice. I learned to ask less, offer more. His school agreed to keep him near books, not doors. The librarian promised a quiet corner. Mondays became pancake mornings, batter spilling over the pan, laughter cutting through the quiet. Safety isn't a promise, it's a practice. The day his new library card came, the librarian printed it with care, his name spelled right in bold letters. Asahel picked a book on bridges and read the first line like he'd found an anchor. On the walk home, I handed him a house key tied to a lanyard I stitched from my scarf. "Can I keep both?" he asked, eyes wide, card in one hand, key in the other. "That's the point," I told him. He slid the key into the lock and pushed the door open himself. A key is a small thing that says a big thing: you belong.